Over the past few decades, national parks have become infamous for missing people, cold cases, and unsolved mysteries. The things uncovered at national parks, as well as the things lost at national parks, have made them a mystic thing of horrors for some, and are considered a hotbed for the supernatural, the paranormal, and unexplainable. What dwells within these forests, these creeks, and mountains? No one can truly be sure. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 chilling missing persons cases that occurred at national parks. Man found in Zion National Park has been identified. Sometimes simple trips into Mother Nature to explore her beauty can be more treacherous than one might think. Seemingly safe and well-traveled pleasure hikes can be just as dangerous to hikers as those trails and areas that are so deeply hidden and isolated. Sometimes months of preparation and supplies are needed before entering these trails. It is for this reason that national park rangers are highly trained in tracking, rescue, and other life-saving techniques as they keep an eye on the wild forest and to make sure that the people who hike through it return safe. However, sometimes people fall into danger despite their best efforts, as was the case when 42-year-old Corbin McMillan of St. George, Utah, left to go hiking on a Thursday in late February 2021 at Angel's Landing in Zion National Park. Upon being reported missing, the Zion National Park Rangers immediately conducted a search and, around midnight that same night, found his abandoned vehicle at the Grotto trailhead, which leads to Angel's Landing. When his car was still unoccupied at the trailhead the next morning, a formal search was initiated and a thorough sweep of the park began. Tragically, officials announced later that Friday that they had located what they later identified as McMillan's body at the base of Moonlight Buttress, whose summit is part of the West Rim Trail not far from Angel's Landing. The officials reported in their statement that his fatal injuries were consistent with a fall from the summit of the Moonlight Buttress, although the investigation is still ongoing by the Washington County Sheriff's Office, and an official cause of him losing his life has not been announced. Nature can be incredibly unforgiving, treacherous, and even deadly at times, and those who are forced to tangle with the brutal elements of the wilderness and are able to live to tell the tale should count themselves incredibly lucky, for that is tragically not always the case. Helen Brash. Our second case is the strange story behind the disappearance of Helen Brash, who, unlike the other victims we will discuss, lived a life of luxury and opulence which most of us could only imagine. Born in 1911, Helen Brash was extremely wealthy due to the profits of the confectionery empire built by her late father-in-law. The death of her husband had made her a multimillionaire, with an estimated fortune of $17 million. Helen loved animals and used some of her enormous fortune to deal in horses, using another portion to set up an animal rights organization. At the time of her disappearance, Helen had recently begun a relationship with a Chicago man called Richard Bailey, who was infamous for his womanizing habits. One day in 1977, Helen attended a routine checkup at a medical clinic in Minnesota. Before she returned to her hotel room, she stopped at a gift store where she told the assistant, "I'm in a hurry, my houseman is waiting." This may have been the last time she was ever seen alive. Following her disappearance, Brash was declared legally dead in 1984. What were the circumstances behind the disappearance? After 37 years as a cold case, in 2015 evidence emerged that shed some light on the mystery. Documents were uncovered along with other evidence which suggest that Brash may have been kidnapped, beaten and shot on the orders of a notorious Chicago gangland horse dealer. It is alleged that her body was disposed of in a nearby steel furnace. Some have suggested that she became a target after threatening to alert the authorities to criminal activity perpetrated by the sinister horse mafia that operated around Chicago at this time. Helen's butler, Jack Matlick, was considered a key figure in the investigation. However, he was never charged in connection with Helen's disappearance. Matlick swore that Helen had boarded a flight from Minnesota to Chicago's O'Hare Airport. However, there is no evidence that she ever boarded the flight. Brash's lover, Richard Bailey, was sentenced to 30 years in 1995 for racketeering and conspiracy, which included horse sale frauds against Helen Brash and a number of other women. Interestingly, federal prosecutors also stated their belief in Bailey's involvement in Helen Brash's disappearance. In 2019, he was released from prison aged 89. Matlick died of natural causes in 2011 and was never charged with anything in connection to Brash's disappearance. Helen's family members are buried in Unionport, Ohio, near her birthplace of Hopedale. The marble monument includes an empty tomb with her name on it, in the hope that her body may one day be recovered. Why did it take so long for this additional information to emerge? With only sketchy details and much vital information still missing, will we ever know the full story of what happened to Helen Brash? Teen hiker found alive after spending night in the freezing temperatures. Although not every lost hiker story has a happy ending, there are some stories of those who managed to survive the harrowing conditions. Such is the case in the story of 15-year-old Britton Kelsey, who was one of the ones lucky enough to be at the mercy of nature and live to tell the tale. Kelsey and his family, along with several others, left to go hiking at Red Mountain Trail, which is a stretch of remote hiking area north of St. George, Utah. The expedition split off into two groups, and when they reunited at the end of the trip, Kelsey was not in either group and was reported missing by his family. Several search parties led by two local sheriff deputies were immediately sent out in helicopters to search the land around where the groups had been hiking. They had to call off the search for the night around midnight, when temperatures were already dropping into the 20-degree Fahrenheit range. The family became increasingly frantic, and the outlook was grim, as Kelsey had only been wearing shorts and a sweatshirt and was not prepared to endure the weather and wilderness in such clothing. The hunt for Kelsey resumed the following morning as soon as it was light, although hope that he had survived the freezing cold temperatures in the night were dwindling. Deputies and rescue crews combed the area on foot and at long last discovered a pair of shoe prints that matched those of the teenager. The crew and medical personnel followed the prints, preparing for the worst, but were led instead to Kelsey, who had miraculously survived and was reunited with his very relieved family. Although he was immediately rushed to the hospital and treated for hypothermia as a result of his night in the freezing weather, Kelsey is expected to make a full recovery and is very lucky to be able to say that he survived such a harrowing ordeal. Spending the night in below freezing temperatures without proper clothing is incredibly dangerous, let alone spending the night in those freezing temperatures in a wild, uninhabited area full of dangerous animals and unfamiliar territory. Hypothermia is a result of exterior temperatures plummeting so low that your body can no longer compensate and maintain a steady internal temperature, so your body temperature begins to fall, affecting all organ and tissue systems. Once hypothermia sets in, between 12 and 40% of all individuals are unable to recover and eventually succumb, depending on how severe the case is. Records show that around 20,000 people die from hypothermia in Britain every year, with 25,000 annual deaths in the United States and 8,000 deaths in Canada. So although Kelsey's young age undoubtedly helped him weather the ordeal without any lasting damage, there is no question that he is extremely fortunate to be reunited with his family, as not all missing hiker stories have such a happy ending. But what do you make of these three stories? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.